Good afternoon, everyone, especially all of the people in beautiful Texas. I've gotten to the point where I think Texas is my home. And if it isn't, I've made it my home. Today has to be one of the most beautiful days that we've had in a long time. And every time somebody asks me, how are things today? My answer is always the same thing. I woke up. So I was off to a good start. And when you think about it, that's really the best thing that you can say. And after that, I always think of my stomach is full. My family is well. The weather is absolutely phenomenal. And I've taken my dogs out for the most wonderful walk. And I don't understand how anybody has anything about which they could complain, because there's nothing at all. Now, I'm going to surprise you by telling you I'm still having a little problem with people who don't use their voices to say something if something bothers them. And believe it or not, you don't have to say something ugly because something is bothering you. Oh, a lot of times what I think about is the idea that so many things are going right. I have so much for which to be thankful. All of us have so much for which to be thankful. And we spend the time talking about what we don't have. And I know that any of you who may have heard me before know that I always talk about my mother, because my mother, there's just nobody in the world like her, because when I think of what she used to say to us, that stays with me forever. And I think maybe the first time I heard it was when I was around 9 or 10 years old. And I am now almost 88 years old. And each morning I need something. I don't need anything for which to be thankful. I need to remind myself is to be thankful. And Mama always told us we didn't have any money, but we were never poor. She defined it so that nobody else had to define why we were poor. We were not poor. We were never poor, according to Mama, because we never went to bed hungry. We never went to bed cold. There was always somebody to say, it's going to be all right. And I am now down to the point where out of 15 kids, there are only 2 of us left. I am now the next to the youngest. My brother, who was younger, died a couple of months ago, and he had been quite ill. And it was that death was really good for him, because it took him out of his misery and out of whatever aggravations. He never thought he had it bad either, because Mama had told him the same thing. And he was retired military in the Air Force. And he had worked with the veterans for maybe 30, 40 years that I can remember. But he was a person who was always thankful. Then I think of my teachers. I had the Cincinnati nuns, the nuns from Cincinnati, Wisconsin, and they were probably the best teachers, probably the best teachers in the world then, and probably the best teachers now. And it's and when you talk about having gone to parochial schools, well, the things that people will always say, well, of course you weren't poor because you went to parochial school, so you had to have money. And the thing was, I paid my own tuition. I graduated from college never having owed any money to anybody, and I worked my way through. It took me 8 years to get my bachelor's, but because Papa always told us never to charge anything if we couldn't afford it. And of course I didn't think I could afford it at the time. And it's funny how you realize what things are, what do they call it? You, in comparison to what? Because I look at what kids have to pay for tuition now versus what I paid for tuition. And I gasp every time I think about it. But it's also, the thing is that when I think about going to the market, a loaf of bread now, one loaf, costs what I used to pay for Wonder Bread when I went to the day old bakery and could get 10 loaves of bread for what you pay for one loaf of bread now. There was something on television yesterday when they were talking about eggs. Can you believe that eggs cost like maybe $7? Maybe $7 a dozen? I can't imagine that. Because we had chickens where we lived. We had our own chickens. And our job, my job, was to go out and get the eggs in the morning if we wanted some eggs to eat, and that's what we had. One of the things when people talk about having fish and chips or fish and whatever, and crabs and oysters and shrimp, and we never paid for that because we would go and troll, my brothers and I, with a net across the river, and we would troll for our food. And I can remember throwing a lot of stuff back, either that or if it was really halfway decent, would pick it up and share it with the neighbors. And of course, a lot of people would say, well, why don't they get it themselves? And of course they didn't get it themselves because they didn't like to do that. And that was something I liked to do. I liked fishing, and I liked anything that got me outside the house. I would rather be outside fishing or picking up eggs, or even picking up behind the birds. And that's nasty. It's nasty if you think it's nasty, but somebody's got to clean up. Somebody's got to feed them. And to me, that was anything that got me out of the house. Now, the only time I did not mind being in the house is when I was cooking. And I really, really enjoyed cooking. But again, it's in comparison to what? As I got older, I liked going to the library. I liked going to school. And I liked competing in school. I liked competing any place. And I mentioned once before that I had 11 brothers, 8 of whom with whom I grew up. And my brothers, for so long, because I was the only girl at home, had me convinced that I was a broken boy. And Papa used to say to me that I was so destructive. And he would use the phrase, you would tear hell off the hinges and go back for the screws. Well, yeah, that's a relative kind of thing. But again, it it made me who I am. And all my life, I wanted to be, when I was a little girl, I wanted to be a sweet little girl. And I thought that I was the sweetest little sister in the world. Until one day, I think I was in Texas. I think I was in Texas, which means it wasn't too long ago. This lady happened to have known my family in Mobile and knew the brothers. And when somebody in the crowd was saying, "Boy, it must have been really nice for you, and your brothers must have taken really, 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 really good care of you, and you didn't have to worry." And this lady said, "No, it wasn't like that at all. She took care of them. Nobody bothered her brothers." And the thing was, it wasn't that nobody bothered my brothers. It's just that in comparison to what you're looking at it, maybe they didn't bother me because they thought my brothers wouldn't stand for it. Now, have you ever thought about something like that? When I was teaching, nobody bothered my students because everybody thought I was mean. And the thing was that I just did not expect anybody to bother my kids. Nobody, and all of the kids were mine if they went to my school. And sometimes, even if they didn't go to my school, if they were part of the group with whom we were doing whatever we were doing. Now, we're finished with that. Let's talk about, we're not going to talk about my family anymore today. We're going to talk about this wonderful weather, and we're going to talk about the wonderful people in Texas. People in Texas, even whatever you hear them saying about the governor and whatever is being said, the people in Texas are really some of the nicest people I've ever met. And when I go out with my dogs every day, everybody is so nice to my dogs. And believe it or not, I have a pit bull. And pit bulls are some of the most maligned animals that I know. And because a pit bull, any dog for that matter, does what they're supposed to do, which is looking out for their territory. But the pit bull is said to be mean. Well, they may be mean, but they're mean because their owners have trained them to be mean. But if you train your bull, your pit bull, your animal, to be a nice dog, my dog is the most gentle animal you have ever seen. And if anybody who hears this knows my animal, they know that, and they will tell you that Missy is one of the nicest animals they've ever met. And maybe we could say that therein lies another tale. But I always think about when we're talking about pit bulls. Pit bulls have the same kind of reputation many times that people who see black people or Mexican people or the people who are considered minorities from afar, they always have something, or frequently have something negative to say if they happen to be in the group that happens not to like that minority. But by and large, all people can get along if they want to get along, if they want to do things together, because they know that together, we thrive. If we're not together, we can't do anything. It's like, oh, I think, where did I hear the thing? There are no atheists in foxholes. And the soldiers that are there, many times they don't make it back. And frequently they don't make it back because sometimes they don't work together. It's like when people talk about a team, people say that there are no I's in teams. There are 13 I's in a team. There are 1, 2 in the T, E. E, 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 E. There are 4 in the E. There are 3 in the A. 1, 2, 3. And there are 4 in the M. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the nice thing now, you say that people who think about I all the time, when you really think about I, those of you who have paid attention in your classes, you start off talking about together. All the I's that we have in together. How many? When you talk about success, all the I's in success. When you look at success, you think about when people talk about, I would bend over to help you. I would bend over backwards. I would do that. And look at that. All, it's you. You. It's an I turned sideways because I would bend over backwards. And S, I straightened out, and then I will bend over to help you. U, C, C, E, S. They're all bent over. All bend over. They make you. And when you look at all of those things, and then that 4 things with the E, me working with you find out there's no success. S, U, C, C, E. There's no success without you. Again, I. Get all those I's together. Your teacher, your mother, your grandmother, your father, grandfather will say, who's going to help me to do this? Me. Well, look at that. We got 4 I's, me. So, me. How are we going to do that? All the me's are there. So some of the me's are jumping up and down and turning upside down. Oops, me turned upside down is we. Well, look at that. Imagine that. Then we got, well, I told you, together, we can do a lot of things. And you, got all of those wiggly S, U, C, C, E. We spread them all out, got a long line. And we are all working together. A lot of I's. Me, you. Let me take a few of these things out of success. Us. And then there's one part we get where we get to the point, and it's the only part where sometimes it really doesn't sound too cool because somebody is pointing a finger at whom? Them. And them are the maligned because they are pointing at you, are pointing at me, are pointing at them, can you see that it takes all of us, everybody working together? And there is no SCCES. There is no success without you. Adios.